what I'm always encouraged by when I visit the schools are the kids.
At one point this trip, we saw 11 kids on an 8-foot bench.
Education is the focus, but evangelism is very much a part of the program. It builds self-esteem. Any child that goes to school and is successful, it builds esteem, self-worth, teaches them value in themselves, which helps keep them from entering into gangs, drug and alcohol abuse.
Thank you for joining Mercy Today. How do mercy and compassion break down barriers and change everything? How do they bring hope? Be inspired as our guests share about the life-changing, soul-impacting work through the ministry of Mercy, Inc. and its partners. Here's your host, Dr. Dan Critchett.
Well, here we go again. Another episode of Mercy Today Radio. We get to tell the story of how compassion changes everything, and it really does. And this episode today is really going to bring that out for us. And we get to tell about the great work of Mercy, Inc. and its partners and friends. Over the years, one of the areas of the world where Mercy works with partners is on the ground in Haiti. There is a medical center there. There's a whole other program about that. And it serves thousands of people every year with good quality medical care and a heart of love. Mercy has been involved with disaster relief, and what we're going to focus on today is called Starfish Kids. If you've heard these episodes before, then we have talked with Cindy and Bud Lenker with Starfish Kids, and this is a child sponsorship and development program, very active, very alive in Haiti. Now, some of the Mercy staff and leaders have lived and worked in Haiti, some of them for quite a number of years, and there's much, much good ministry that has gone on there and much more to do. For this episode of Mercy Today, we focus on the Starfish Kids program. And when you have a heart for the precious kids of Haiti and you see the huge challenges they face, you just want to do something. Well, Starfish Kids is a great way to start, and it is at least a beginning. So travel has been restricted to Haiti and most of the rest of the world, as we know, for the past year due to COVID. And finally, a team was able to travel there. And so what did they see and what did they hear? And I guess my question as a pastor and a missionary trainer is always, what is God up to among the churches and schools with the Mercy partners? And what is the state of ministry and Starfish Kids in Haiti? Well, let's ask them. Two of them are with us here in the studio right now, and I already mentioned their names. Bud and Cindy Lenker, and today the title of the episode is A Praise Report from Haiti. In studio today is Bud and Cindy. Starfish Kids, Mercy, Inc. Child Development. We're going to learn about, there's a little bit of a tweak in the name, but again, the episode is A Praise Report from Haiti. Cindy over here on the left and Bud over here on the right. Thank you so much for coming in today, and welcome to Mercy Today Radio.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Dan. Good to be here.
Glad to have you here. We've known each other for, it seems like a long time. It's really been less than a year, I think, totally. But, man, a lot of ministry miles for that. So let's jump right into it here. And I want to hear you guys give this praise report. And I understand that, Cindy, you're going to be doing most of the answering and the conversation, and Bud is going to jump in when appropriate. Bud is very involved with other parts of ministry in Haiti, with buildings and maintenance and all that stuff. So for Starfish Kids, let's go. You just got back.
Yep.
And why did you go now? I mean, I think it might have been a little challenging even just to get okay to go, right?
It was a little challenging.
But why now, particularly?
We wanted to be able to visit as many of the Starfish schools as we could during our trip. We wanted to evaluate those and gather information, reconnect with the pastors, and just be an encouragement to them. We also wanted to let them know that Starfish is undergoing some transition from previously being an OMS directed
One
program.
Mission Society. For
yes,
those who,
One Mission Society.
Okay.
Now with Mercy coming on, and they were aware of those transitions, but they didn't really have a face to put with that.
Sure. Okay. Now, you have been there before, so maybe just give us a brief summary that the two of you have been very actively, very busy, very contributing there, very giving and loving there. Can you just give us a brief snapshot of what you have done there before?
Sure. Bud and I made our first mission trip to Haiti in 2005. And while we were there, the Lord called Bud to full-time ministry in Haiti. It took me about 5 years to get on that train.
Wow, okay.
So then we ended up fundraising and going to Haiti and serving from 2011 to 2013.
Okay.
Full-time living there.
Yeah, so you got kind of embroiled into the whole culture and the language and the churches and schools, and you met some of the kids. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So Starfish Kids might be new to some of our listeners, so maybe give us a little background. Help us understand the purpose and the mission of Starfish Kids.
Starfish Kids provides tuition for the students to attend school. It provides the books for them in school. It also allows the school to train their teachers and pay their teachers.
Okay.
In addition to all of our Starfish schools, there's about 30 throughout northern Haiti, and they all are schools that are associated with an Emmaus Fellowship of churches. So they're connected with the church. Every school is connected with a pastor and a church and a sponsoring community.
So all of the kids in the Starfish schools are getting a Christian education.
Absolutely.
And I know we can get into it a lot, maybe at another time, but a $25 investment in a child's life makes a huge difference for them, for the kids and for the family. Okay.
Yes.
And so the mission, again, the mission of Starfish is to give the kids an opportunity for Christian education, to pay for their materials and tuition and teachers.
Yes.
Income and so forth. Okay, great. And
education is the focus.
Yeah.
But evangelism is very much a part of the program.
Okay.
Kids are required to attend church regularly.
Okay.
So they many times are the only one who will read in their family, or they'll go home and evangelize to their family, teach reading and writing there. So, and it gets the whole family and community involved then with the church. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get to the bracelets later, but you told me that you slipped one of these Salvation Story bracelets on 1,000 Haitian kids' wrists. So we're talking numbers. So give us some encouraging reports of what you found as you visited those schools.
What I was encouraged by, what I'm always encouraged by when I visit the schools, are the kids. They're so cute and excited to see visitors and warm and welcoming. It's humbling to see the conditions of the schools because they're not great, but it's also very exciting to see what they accomplish with so few resources. In this trip, we saw a lot of classrooms in action. We visited about 18 of our schools in about a 6-day period.
Oh, man.
So we were on a lot of roads in Haiti. The blackboards were covered with physics, chemistry, algebra, and some of the secondary level classes we saw. Math, we saw kids doing math and spelling, and just a lot of things that I'd never seen before or had the opportunity to see. The schools are very structured, organized. Kids are well behaved and very respectful.
Really? Oh, that's encouraging. That is.
Very
Because you could
respectful.
think, it could be chaos.
No.
With the kind of the rundown. I mean, I saw some of the photos that came back, and listeners can go to your Facebook page and see pictures and a narrative and so forth. Yeah. So.
Yeah. The classrooms many times are just divided by kind of inadequate partitions.
Yeah.
And the kids are sitting in those classrooms, so there's noise because of the instruction going on and the repeating and. But it's very organized. And they're
all sitting on a bench, right?
Yes.
Right next to each other, side by side, as many you can get onto a bench.
Yes, squeezed on a bench.
At one point this trip, Dan, we saw 11 kids on an 8-foot bench. Just to give you a perspective of how crowded some of the classrooms
That's
are.
less than a foot each.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So let's go on to what did you see that gave you concern? What are the challenges that you were able to see on this trip?
Well, part of the trip and the goal of the trip was to ask each of the pastors that we came in touch with, what are their challenges? And I will say that most of them don't share their challenges unless asked. So it's not like we walk in and they start telling us right away what they don't have.
Yeah.
They're very thankful. They were thrilled to see us and to know that somebody out there really cares.
Yeah.
So over the underlying theme we heard from many were the kids are hungry. It would be an extreme benefit to the children to be able to provide a feeding daily.
And we are going to get to that because that's kind of a new development we want to talk about.
That's one of our goals. Mm-hmm.
I want you to tell us about the effect that the Starfish program is having on the kids and the families, and we'll get to that right after the break. Don't go away.
I'm Brad Swinford with Salem Concrete Paving. It's a privilege to partner with Mercy, Inc., who provides hope to people around the world by meeting critical needs and introducing people to Jesus. I know that through Mercy, Inc., I'm investing in God's kingdom as they spread the love and gospel of Christ around the world. So please join me in supporting Mercy, Inc. and MercyToday Radio by praying or going to their website at mercytoday.global. Thank you.
Here is Mercy, Inc. Executive Director Doug Hoffman with another Mercy Minute.
Mercy wants to transform communities in sustainable ways through acts of compassion and sharing the gospel. We want to work together in and around in poverty areas, disaster, disease, areas that lead to people in total despair. But God often uses circumstances like we have right now with the COVID crisis going on to bring people to an everlasting hope and healing, that they're only going to find that in Jesus. And as we work with people, Mercy wants to open the doors of hopefulness in nations with partnerships. We want to do it with like-minded groups and organizations that work together really to provide clean water, food, aid to widows, literacy, orphans, medical help, those type of things in compassion as we work with people around the world.
Now's the time to become a part of something greater in our community. You and your organization can partner with Mercy Today and change the lives of thousands around the world. Our team of business professionals can also come alongside you and help you grow your organization to maximize your impact. Our goal is to help you increase your quadruple bottom line: people, planet, profit, and purpose. Consider being a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at mercytoday.global.
Businesses can partner with this program and fund missions. Go to mercytoday.global and click on the Business Resources link. We are talking with Bud and Cindy Lenker, and the title of today's episode is A Praise Report from Haiti. So let's get right back into it. And let's finish up, Cindy, with a couple of the challenges that you found there. And I'm sure your heart goes out when you see these things that maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda, been better, or there's so much that could be done. But what did you see there that caused you concern?
Well, besides the feeding for the children, that is kind of a top priority. The other thing we heard from pastors is getting more sponsors, because that provides them consistent funding to train their teachers and pay their teachers. And what we found out this time that I didn't know in the past was an average teacher earns about 100 to 1,800 Haitian goods, their form of currency, monthly, which is equivalent to about $20 or $30 US monthly. Oftentimes, this is considered a really good job in Haiti for them. And oftentimes, if the school can't pay their teachers, they might train them, and then the teacher can go get a better paying position at another school.
Okay.
So they lose a good teacher.
Yeah. So hang on a second. You said that they told you that with more sponsors, they could pay their teachers more or have more teachers to fill the need?
They could consistently pay them.
Okay.
And they could pay them potentially more as well.
Good. I want our listeners to hear that, because we'll give them an opportunity to find out about sponsorship and how they could step in and be a part of that. Good. Thank you. Anything else on the concerns or challenges?
The other one is always the physical building itself.
Yeah.
They need, some needed roofs. They were leaky. Some have inadequate classroom space. Some of them are really dangerous. They have kids meeting in 10-sided classrooms upstairs on the roof of the building, but there's no railing or anything around the outside.
Yeah.
And when it rains, it floods. Several of the schools had flooded classroom areas, or some of the schools, the bottom floor floods completely and they can't even have class.
I saw some of those pictures on your Facebook page.
Yes.
Yeah, you had a monsoon. Did you call it actually a monsoon? It was heavy rain.
It was heavy rain. 4 of the days we were there, it rained 11 inches.
Oh, man.
So, and they didn't label that a monsoon. That was just rainy days.
Okay. Wow. Well, they're sitting out there in the Caribbean.
Yes,
They're on the other side of the island from Dominican Republic. And it's right in the pathway there of weather and clouds and storms and hurricanes and all those things that go through. So
I will say, even with the challenges, we heard a lot of great reports. Haitian government has testing that they do. And we heard reports of how well the students in the Starfish schools test and do and achieve through those testing. So that was an encouragement.
In comparison with students at the government schools. Okay.
So that was very encouraging.
Yeah. Great. So let's get down to some personal things. I mean, there are kids and families there that are impacted, some very significantly, by the Starfish program. So tell us about those.
Very seldom will you find a Haitian family that doesn't have more than one student or one child.
Okay.
And many of those families are made up of extended family, aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews who have been orphaned or even neighbors' children who are now living in a different home environment. And so when a student is sponsored, that provides that those monies, instead of paying for them to go to school, can help feed other people in their household, provide other things.
Yeah.
Or it might they might have opportunity to send a second child to school where in the past only one could have attended. It benefits the children because they may be the only one to learn to read or write in their home, and they can teach their siblings or even their parents.
Does that happen a lot?
It happens a lot.
Yeah. So maybe they read to a younger sibling or to the parent or something.
Yes.
And then maybe they can't teach reading, but they can model it, and maybe they can pass that on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Evangelism, as I said, is a key component of the program. So these students go home, they learn about Jesus, they talk to their parents and family members about that or their neighbors. They also are learning, it builds self-esteem. Any child that goes to school and is successful, it builds esteem, self-worth, teaches them value in themselves, which helps keep them from entering into gangs, drug and alcohol abuse, sexual activity at a young age. All of the things that we might experience in the United States are available and happen in Haiti as well. Yeah. It gives them hope for a better future, and it benefits their entire family and community eventually.
What I'm picking up on is that when I first started right out of college, I was a school teacher, and so I'm familiar with the classroom and the family interaction and all that stuff. What I'm hearing that is in a Christian environment, a Christian school sponsored by a Christian church, there's a higher likelihood that those kids would adopt a different character, a different worldview, a different sense of themselves and their purpose in life, rather than not to say the government schools are bad. It's just that they don't convey those same kinds of things, and so that is a seed planted in those kids' lives that will bear fruit over time. Yeah, it's great. So you wanted to talk more about the feeding program.
I do. I do.
In fact, when you were on this show, gosh, it's been a number of months, you were still working full-time and hadn't taken on this director coordinator role. And now that you are stepping in and wanting to have a little bit more impact from your heart, and that is, let's feed these kids.
Yes.
Why? Why do you want to have a feeding program?
Well, it's hard for children to learn when they're hungry.
Right.
It helps them be a better student.
Yeah.
It benefits that the monies that are going for the education and all of that, it just makes a better all-around educational experience.
And the families can't always afford to feed whatever kids and family members they have. So a feeding program, tell us about how you envision that working.
Well, we were very lucky. The Lord orchestrated every step of this trip, and one of the steps we didn't even see was a tour of the Medica Mamba manufacturing factory that's right there in northern Haiti. Okay. This is a modern facility, very much like North American production. They use their biggest customer is UNICEF. They ship to 13 countries around the world, and they use Haitian peanuts as well as other imported product to create a nutritionally and vitamin-enriched peanut butter product that meets all the nutritional. They have four recipes for different ages of people. So all the way from infant and young up to elderly. And
Oh, okay.
so they have, for 25 cents a day, we could feed a child a packet of this peanut butter product with a roll or crackers to fill them up a little bit and provide
And
something.
so I think you mentioned that you would provide one of those, the feeding program would provide one of those, what did you call it? It's one a day for 5 days for each of the school days.
Yes. And that would be not just for the Starfish children, but all the students in the school.
Okay, great.
If we can get a school funded at 30% of the total students, we can provide a feeding for those kids.
And that makes a big difference to get the nutrition that they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that would stave off some of the medical and health issues.
Exactly.
That do kind of creep in, and then they have to go to Bethesda Medical Center, and that's a
Right.
whole other show.
Right, exactly.
But, so anything else about I want to hear some stories. I know you have some.
On the feeding or just stories in general? Because I do have a couple to share.
I bet you do.
We were very excited to visit a school and have a teacher come out who was teaching math and explain to us that he was a Starfish student, had extended and completed his education, and then come back to the community, lives there, and now is investing in kids, and was very thankful for the program.
Did you say that he is now teaching in the same school?
In the same school he attended.
Yeah, and he was a Starfish kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was really exciting.
Excellent, yeah.
We also have known of a family, Bud and I, the single mother of 4, has been in the Vaudreuil community all the years that we've been visiting Haiti. She has 1 child and then a set of triplets. So as you can imagine, that's pretty challenging in even the States. And 2 of her triplets are graduating this year. 1 is looking to go into business administration and another into the medical field. And both have been Starfish kids their entire school career.
So the triplets are in school now.
2 of the 3 are, yes.
Okay. And they are Starfish kids.
They are all they're both Starfish.
What I'm hearing is this is a real human connection.
Oh, yes.
So if somebody is listening and saying, well, you know, what happens if I send $25? Or when they add the feeding program, there will be a little bit more.
Right.
It really does have an impact. These kids, the ones that you're talking about, have been Starfish kids for a period of time. And look at the investment and success. And now that student, the gentleman, the teacher, is now, I think you used the word, reinvesting his life back.
Right.
And so you just never know how God's going to use your investment if you're listening and wanting to know what you can do. We'll give you an opportunity toward the end of the show, but that's fantastic. I like hearing that. So let's see. I had another one here. A girl that was ready to graduate. Now, was that something that you wanted to? And she was a Starfish kid from the very beginning. So from her school years.
We did meet a young lady who was the top of her class in her school, the school we visited, and she is preparing to graduate, and she was has been a Starfish student the entire time.
Wow. Wow. So one thing that you mentioned, and I wrote down, because I'm going to take it back to my church as a report, and you're going to come to my church and give a report.
I'm excited to do that.
Our people provided several thousand of these Salvation Story bracelets, the simple little beads. I'm wearing one right now. And so you actually put these little these bead bracelets on 1,000 Haitian kids.
Yes, we did.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, we did.
Tell us about that.
Just like North American parents, Haitian parents want to see the best for their kids and want to be able to provide better for their kids, help their kids fulfill their hopes and dreams. And while education is important, evangelism is really reaching beyond that. So Starfish teaches them about Jesus, and through these bracelets provided by your church, 5,300 of them, I might remind you, Dan.
Yes. We're happy about that.
We were able to provide this little visual tool for the teachers to use. So we visited the schools, we put the bracelets on, gave the story, had the teachers give the story to the children. And for some, we gave a second bracelet and called them our little pizzi, which is small or little pastors, for them to go out and tell their friends and family. So I am so thankful for the volunteers that made the bracelets. I feel I got a huge blessing in being able to interact with the children and give those out to them. And as Bud and I return to Haiti, I'm sure, as God allows, we'll have another trip. I'm confident we'll continue to see children wearing those bracelets and that God's going to use that throughout Haiti.
We're anxious to have you come and share that with us. This is Bud and Cindy Lenker, a praise report from Haiti. We're going to carry over into the AfterWords after we finish the radio portion here, so stick with us. So Bud and Cindy Lenker, a praise report, talking about Starfish Kids in Haiti.
We'll be back with more Mercy Today right after this.
How do you multiply your time, talent, and treasures? By investing in Mercy Today. Whether it's going on a mission outreach halfway around the world or sharing your insights and experiences with others in our local community, our team of business professionals can help you multiply what God has given you. We can help you grow your organization so that you and your fellow work associates can utilize your talents for even greater causes as you multiply your resources to do even more. Join us and become a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global. Have you been looking for new ways to grow your organization and have a lasting, eternal impact? Mercy Today has an amazing team of business professionals that have managed small businesses to large corporations, and we want to share that know-how and experience with you. We're also committed our lives to sharing the gospel with compassion and serving the practical needs of communities around the world. Partner with us and become a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global.
This is Doug Hoffman, Executive Director for Mercy, Inc. Just thanking you for listening to MercyToday.global.
Well, that time went all too fast. So Bud and Cindy are going to hang around a little bit, and we're going to go into the AfterWords on the podcast portion of our show. And so if you're not on the podcast already on our website, you want to go to MercyToday.global, and you'll be able to hear the AfterWords there. If you have questions about today's topic, go to that website, MercyToday.global. Connect with us, go to the contact form, and off we go. So I want to thank you for listening today. This is Mercy Today Radio, telling the story of how compassion changes everything. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Critchett, wrapping up this episode. And until next time, and I love saying this, may God help you be a part of what He is doing in our world today. So join us on the show again. Find out where in the world we'll be going next. Find all of our shows and a whole lot more at MercyToday.global. God bless you, my friend, and goodbye for now. We're back, and this is the AfterWords. We had the before words and the during words, and now we're into the AfterWords. Bud and Cindy Lenker, a praise report from Haiti, the Starfish School Sponsorship Program, and a great, great conversation. Thank you again, both Bud and Cindy, for being here. And let's wrap it up with a few things that we kind of some loose ends and a couple of things we maybe want to mention and leave with our guests. So, Bud, you wanted to tell a story because you're the hands-on guy, you're the building guy, the construction guy, but you saw something there that was really encouraging for you. So share that story with us.
Well, one of the schools that we visited, we drove to the end of the road, which was about an hour, and then hiked 45 minutes to an hour up to this.
I saw that on your Facebook page, yeah.
To this village.
Yeah.
And the school administrator had brought a cabinet maker into the schoolyard to set up his cabinet shop in the schoolyard so the kids could see the value of their education, being able to do something after.
There you go, yeah.
So an application.
Yeah. And you had said that he was using math and some of the school-type skills that you would learn.
Absolutely.
And he was using that in the trade of building cabinets.
It was interesting. I wish I could give you a verbal picture of him doing math problems with a piece of charcoal on a board.
Wow.
You know, because that's what he has to work with.
Yeah. And he was calculating where to cut or distances or lengths or measures.
Correct.
And yeah. And so what did that say to you about a kid having the opportunity for school?
Well, could see the value of, say, math.
Yeah.
You know, that there's things outside of just existing.
Right, right.
So,
and it's not just school learning. You pass the test. Okay, I got that. Because a lot of times I remember my kids when I was a school teacher, I'm never going to use this stuff. And I'm sure that has crossed the minds of every student. But here he is
worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Here he is using math in a trade that gives him a fulfilling place to serve and to help. And he was paid to do that, right? I mean, so was he earning a living or
I don't know if it was just gave him a place to do his work or whether he was paid.
Okay.
I know he sells his cabinets.
Sure, there you go.
So I had a interpreter with me, and he and I had a pretty good conversation. I asked him about his tools, and so he proudly got out his one handsaw and 2 block planes, and that's what he builds beautiful cabinets out of. I kind of felt real lazy with power tools.
Yeah. Oh, great story, though, because that's really normal. That's what you got to be creative, innovative. You got to figure out how you're going to use your education and your experience to make a living and to make a contribution. So
absolutely,
you were able to see that. Yeah, go to the Facebook page for Starfish Kids. You can see those pictures, and there's a couple of videos on there too, and some narrative and so forth. So yeah, good stuff. Lots of pictures. So Cindy, let's go back to you. We wanted to talk about the importance of sponsorship. Now that you're in the director coordinator role, you're going to ramp that up. You're going to be promoting that. Mm-hmm. And you were saying about the goals that you have. Now that you've been there, you see the situation, you understand what's going on, you have a vision for what can happen, and you're going to be kind of doing it, I don't want to say incrementally to make it small steps, but I mean, you have a strategic plan.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
Well, one of the gentlemen on our team was our money guy from Mercy Inc., and Travis was so helpful to talk to us about how we could approach this and get some good foundation under the schools.
I think we call that a CFO.
Yes.
Chief Financial Officer.
Yeah.
Bean counter, money guy, all of that.
Right.
Good Travis. Yeah, he's a good man.
So each day after we'd visit the schools, we'd come back to where we were staying at the hospitality house, and we'd talk about what our observations were individually. And time again, we all kind of came to agreement that, yep, that's what I saw too, and that's a good plan.
Good debriefing.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the trip, we agreed that the best way that we could help the most kids longer term is to be kind of starting with one school, establish the feeding program, get that going, be able to have some stories and reports of how that impacts those children specifically, do a little research on, starting points and past testing after the fact and health and nutrition and all of those things. And then we'd like to, Travis with his numbers figured out that if we were able to sponsor 30% of the children in the school, we could provide this peanut butter nutritional packet for 25 cents a day per student. That gives us a good foundation that provides feeding not just for the sponsored children, but for all the children in the school.
In that school.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't create so much of a dependency on the sponsors that the schools can't function if we can't achieve or continue that. We don't want to be just handing out and not having a partnership. We just want to come alongside.
And that's why the 30% is important.
Yes.
Because if you sponsor 30% of the kids, then that allows the school to function without them being dependent. Because if you funded with sponsorships for 50% or 100%, then I get that. So what happens after you get the first school fully, quote, fully funded at 30% of the students being sponsored? What next?
Then we move on to the next school.
Okay.
And we hopefully learn through the process.
Yeah.
And make adjustments as needed. We are looking to develop more whole school community connections, where if we have a larger church or maybe a couple or 3 smaller churches that want to come alongside one school, one community, take on that responsibility, then God willing, there'll be more travel and teams, and maybe that expands to beyond the school and education and sponsorships to maybe providing a medical clinic or a vacation Bible school or a well in their community.
For the sake of our listeners, I think you jumped the ocean. When you're talking about a church, you're talking about an American church
North American.
Who could take on a school or a group of kids as a church sponsoring project? Because before we were talking about churches, it was the Haitian churches in the Emmaus. Okay.
Right.
So
that's kind of what we're referring to as our champion program.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
Where we do have one church in Erie, Pennsylvania that has done that. And it's been with one of our Starfish schools. They provide funding for 72 of their 300 and some students in that school. So that has been very successful.
Yeah.
The church has sent teams over to do Bible schools, to do parent training, marriage encounter things, educational things with business. And I mean, they just really have come alongside the community.
Yeah, and that creates that partnership. I want pastors and church leaders and missionary people or mission people to hear that, because that is a way that you can partner and you're touching a lot of lives.
Yeah.
Not only feeding them and keeping them healthy, but giving them education, giving them hope. And the church can do that. I would just encourage pastors you go to our website, MercyToday.global. We'll provide all the connections and the information. And some of these initiatives are fairly new and fairly kind of getting started. But you'll develop a model with the first school and do some tweaking and so forth. And then with various variables and factors and so forth, just get better and better at it. So this is a way for a church to get closely involved with a mission work and with a school and a church in Haiti and with the families and with the kids. I like that a lot. As a pastor, I like that.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to just pass the plate and say, put in some money, for missions generically. Well, we want to hear the stories. We want to be connected with the people. Perfect. Thank you for that.
I didn't say earlier, Dan, also that if we have donors that maybe don't want to sponsor a individual child, we certainly are open to and are seeking donors to just provide monies towards feeding.
Yeah.
The good in that is, of course, we are able to benefit more children more quickly if we have feeding donations. The kind of downside is it's hard to plan. If a donor is maybe a 1-year donor, we can do feeding for a year, but then we have to look to replace that money, going forward. The individual sponsorship allows a person to connect a little bit more with the child.
I like that.
And so that's just a different level of involvement.
Yeah. I want to say that to rewind a little bit, we were talking about the bracelets.
Yes.
And at my church, we're making these things like crazy. We sent you guys, you came up to our church, and we had kind of a send-off. We laid hands and asked God to go with these little messengers, these little colored beads, and you said over 5,000 of them, and already they have 3,000 more ready to go somewhere.
Right.
So what I wanted to say to our listeners is I would love to have you have one of these bracelets, and I'll personally take it on with my church. If you want to get one of these bracelets for yourself or get a couple of them, you can, and also we'll tell the story. You get what we call a fridge card.
Yep.
It has the story on it we put a magnet on the back of it. We just put it up on the refrigerator. That's in North America where we have refrigerators. That's not the case in every place these little messengers will travel. But go to our website, MercyToday.global, and just ask for a bracelet. No cost, no obligation. We'd love to get one out to you. So our people would be thrilled at my little church to package these things up and send them wherever they go. They are a messenger like no other. We have a lot of stories about how people have responded so beautifully to these bracelets. They do tell the salvation story. 5 colored beads, scripture verses on the little tag, the removable tag on each one. Anyway, so on we go. So anything else? I think maybe we're about ready to wrap up, but I wanted to go back to, Cindy, you were saying that if somebody just wanted to provide nutrition for kids, that they could, it's either a one-time donation or maybe monthly or... Now, I'm doing some math in my head, and it's $5 or maybe more, $5 or $10 to feed one child for a month. Have I got that right?
That's about right.
Because that happens only at the schools, so it's on school days. So for 25 cents, folks, what can you do with a quarter? Right?
A day, right.
It's in the couch cushion, right? It's in between there. It's on the floor in your car, under the seat. But that feeds, 25 cents feeds a child with this nutrition product for a day. And put those together and you get 5 or so dollars for one child for a whole month. I mean, we spend that much on 2 Starbucks lattes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. MercyToday.global. Go there and ask questions, ask for more information, give us some feedback, some input. We'll pass it all on to Bud and Cindy, and we'll be connected. My people are just thrilled to have these connections. And I use it as a relative term, but we have a small church. I mean, we have, back in pre-COVID, we were barely over 100 in Sunday attendance. 35 of our people have stepped up to participate in this little bracelet program.
Praise the Lord.
All doing different parts of assembly and all that stuff. And and they're pleased to be involved with that. So anything else? Bud, you want to wrap up with anything else? Okay. He's told his story. And Cindy, what else? Just maybe just talk to our listeners. Just speak directly to them.
Well, first, I want to thank you for having us today and for your church. It is a exciting thing to watch people get involved. Starfish Kids is near and dear to our hearts. It has been for a long time. The children benefit so greatly. The blessing really is the sponsors as well, because you feel like for a rather small investment, you're just really impacting a child's life.
Yeah.
And to see those faces, to get the opportunity to hear back stories from family and other Haitians that we have relationships with there, is just a remarkable thing. God is doing a mighty work in Haiti. It's a hard life. It's a difficult life. Everything about living in Haiti is difficult.
Yeah.
And for them to have Jesus and to be able to trust him every day for their future. When we lived there, one of the Haitians, it really hit home with us. We had a day when we talked about leftovers. Frequently in the United States, we might have a meal and we have leftovers. And what do? We put it in a little Tupperware container and we put it in the fridge.
Right.
And as we were talking with him, and he's a well-educated, he was our IT guy. He was very knowledgeable about things. And as we were talking about, leftovers one day, he kind of quizzically looked at us and said, leftovers? We don't have a word for that in Creole. Wow. And we're like, we were confused then. And he said, well, we don't have leftovers. We don't have refrigeration for the most part. We don't have, they don't have consistent electricity to have a refrigerator. And he said, if we have foods that are not being eaten during that meal, we take it out and give it to our neighbor or a person on the street, or we see children that are hungry. So it's just very humbling. But I often said, it's not that we've ever had to choose whether we would have a meal. It's what we're going to have for a meal. And for many of these people and for these parents watching their children and having to make a choice about which one might eat today and which one may not, being able to provide just that little bit of hope and encouragement and love from a stranger across the ocean is an exciting program to be part of.
Wow. One last thing, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. This wasn't part of our plan. Give me 2 or 3 words of what this whole involvement for you now, moving into it after retiring and now you're taking it on. What does it mean to you personally? They could be 3 individual words, or you could build a little tiny sentence out of it. What do you think?
For me, it's full circle. God did a mighty work in my life in 2005 when we went. And I feel like I am able now to give back and be a part of Haiti in a way that I would have never had the experience or opportunity to do if I'd never been willing to just go. And he's been faithful, and it's rewarding.
Thank you. That's more than 2 or 3 words.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
I had to explain full circle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll just leave it at that, full circle. Thank you, Cindy, very much, and Bud for coming in and spending time with us. Folks, I want you to go to MercyToday.global, ask questions, give us some feedback, let's connect, and just ask for one of those bracelets, or 2 or 3. I like the idea of giving 2 to a kid, because they'll take it home and give one to a sibling or to a friend. It's fantastic. That's it for our AfterWords. God bless you, folks. Talk to you next time.